Good afternoon, Slushies. How are you? Excellent, excellent. My name is Valeti. I'm a cardiologist, and I founded this company to make delicious meat that's better, safer, and healthier for us, the planet, and the animals. My team is a group of health scientists, experts, foodies, who really want to transform an industry that's badly in need of it. So, I don't know how many of you heard about our crazy company? Show of hands. All right, great. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not a crazy idea anymore. We're very serious about this, folks. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to tell you a story and walk you through the future of meat. So join me. So this is a picture from our lunch area there. And I'm sure many of you saw these ladies serving food. So I'm going to start with a question. Quick show of hands. How many of you had any type of meat at lunch? Chicken, beef, pork? Yes. So how many of you are willing to become a vegetarian or vegan? Show of hands. Okay, great. That's a good start. So let me talk to you about the history of meat. About 10,000 years ago, man first domesticated wild animals. These wild beasts are what became livestock that we eat now. And that really kickstarted our civilization, where man was able to stay in one place, grow his food, and have the meat and the milk. And that created a global love for meat. Almost every culture in the world eats meat. Every religion, every ethnicity. So 90% of the world population eats meat. Now, the demand for meat, we all know is not sustainable, and the meat industry also knows that. Let me talk to you about the three main problems with the way meat is produced right now. The first one is the severe depletion of resources like land and water, because almost half of the deforestation in the world is related to feed crops that go to animals. And if we continue to do animal agriculture as we do now, we'll run out of fresh water in the next 15 years. And if you live like you live in America, we already need 4 Earths to feed our demand for meat. So with that in mind, we also know that the demand for meat is doubling in the next 35 years. That's incredible. Increasing demand and depletion of resources. But that's only one problem. The second one I'm concerned about as a physician is also the health risks associated with the way meat is produced now. One of the main things is the staggering amount of contamination in meat from feces during slaughter. So Consumer Reports did a survey last year, at a detailed research report in December, that showed 90% of the meats, whether ground beef or pork or chicken, have fecal contamination with Enterococcus. There's also E. coli, there's Salmonella, there's Yersinia, there's Campylobacter. So the list goes on, and that's only one part of the problem. The second part is the intense antibiotic use. So 70% of the antibiotics made in the US are fed to animals. And we know that is the stepping stone for superbugs, which are antibiotic resistant. And that's something we deal with as physicians in the hospital. The superbugs are something we should all be worried about. Now, there's a third problem also with health risks. That's the intense overcrowding of animals in small places that creates a very nice substrate for diseases like the avian flu, which happens almost every year, where there's millions of birds that are culled to decrease the risk of avian flu, right? So now what's the third one? This is probably the most important reason why a big industry is starting in growing meat directly from cells, like I'm going to talk about. Can you imagine it takes 23 calories of grain to make 1 calorie of beef? So that's a 23 to 1 down conversion of energy. There's no major industry in the world that can actually say they can sustain at such large quantities with such economic inefficiencies. And it's only possible because of the enormous amount of subsidies or tax breaks or things that we have to do to cut corners to feed the demand for cheap meat. So these are the three problems I think that set us up, the trends have set us up for the largest opportunity in history. And we're starting this off initially with focusing on the large market for pork and beef. It's a 500 billion market on the Western Hemisphere. And that's the opportunity that's ripe for the taking for innovators who want to get into this for the right reasons. And let me show you how technology at Memphis Meats is working. So we start by taking cells from really healthy, strong meat animals. So for example, we take cells from a tenderloin, and in the meat that everybody ate, let's say now, this afternoon at lunch, there's some types of cells in that meat that can self-renew themselves. So these are already there in the food, and we identify the cells that can renew themselves, and we put them in conditions where they get clean and nutrient-rich food, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, oxygen, and sugars. And that is grown to whatever we are trying to make. Let's say if we're making very tender meat, we harvest it after a certain time of growing. If you're making it into much more texturized meat, we wait a little bit longer and harvest it. And then the products that we all like to eat, at least in America, hot dogs, burgers, meatballs, sausages, we can make them very easily. I'm going to show you what meat looks like under a microscope. So this is, for example, beef under a microscope. The only difference is this beef came from our farm. But you couldn't tell the difference if you look under a microscope because these are very large muscle bundles with lots of nuclei that are contracting and moving. So if you take it from a slaughtered animal and put under a microscope, this is how it's looking, right? So we're calling this the second domestication. So think about it. The first domestication was wild animals to livestock. Now we're looking at a paradigm change. We're looking at domesticating cells to grow our own food. I'll show you some prototypes, and these are not very pretty. These are very early prototypes. This was an attempt at growing bacon, like a flat sheet of bacon. And it looked okay, but we had to do a lot more development. Here's an example of a beef fajita. So every time we do a production batch, our scientists and our food scientists and chefs really get excited about cooking them, and they put this on this really hot pan, and they try to use their handheld cameras or iPhones. So I'll show you a very amateur footage of the fajita cooking. And you can see the camera gets close, and then it's really hot, so they take the hand back, and then they go back close again to see the meat that's sizzling. You can see the oils coming out. And there's a big difference between professional and amateur photography, but this is very exciting for us every time we grow the meat and start cooking it. In this slide, I'm going to show you, we brought a professional chef in from Los Angeles, one of the top chefs in America, and said, make whatever you want with this. And he decided to make a meatball. So I will show you the video of the meatball, where you can see him rolling in his hand. And then we realized that that was the toughest one for him to pick to make, because a burger is really easy to make. You just put it on a pan, it gets flat, and then you just turn it back and forth. But for a meatball to hold its shape and be spherical, it's not easy, and we were very happy that when the meat was being cooked, the cross-linkages were forming, the Maillard reaction was happening, and it was incredible to see this. It was tasted by a lady, and she wanted to eat the whole meatball, and we had to stop her because there was lots of people in the room that wanted to eat it too. So please watch this video.
It tastes like a meatball. It's good. Can I have more? Sure. Yeah, this is good. I like this.
So that's the picture of the first ever clean meatball in the world. And This was released earlier this year, and since then, we've done multiple other products and prototypes that we are testing. But the most important thing we are focusing on is the taste of these products. You can't tell the difference. We've done multiple blinded tests for people. And the second most important thing we're also focusing on is to lower the cost. Because clearly, the market is so large, we have to be able to get to cost competitive pricing. So we're working on lowering the cost, and in the last year, we've lowered the cost of production by 100-fold. We still have a ways to go, but we're also monitoring what this whole process could look when it's really scaled up. What if you're doing metric tons every week of production, and we are sitting right next to a distribution center? What is that going to look like in terms of environmental impact? So if you look at this, the black or gray bars are what conventional animal agriculture is in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, or land use, or water use. And across the board, our process is telling us we're going to be significantly better, 70 to 80 to 90% better than the current production processes. So this is very, very encouraging for us. We're also very carefully looking at the safety of the product we're growing. Right? So when you're growing meat, you want to make sure that it doesn't get contaminated with bacteria. So periodically, we take off some cultures from it, and you can see that on your right-hand side is where the M is the beef from our farm, and then you have conventional meat and also meat from organic, free-range animals. And all those fuzzy lines you're seeing is bacteria growing within 24 hours of putting it on the bacteriologic plate. But you don't see any from the meat that's growing on our farm. And we've done this with other species, pork and other species. And it's very clear to us, because in our production of growing meat, we're completely detaching slaughter from actually production of meat. So there is no chance of the fecal contamination from the guts to actually get into the meat. So it's a very big step. And we also feel, because of that, the bacterial counts are logs of magnitude, significantly lower in any of the products that we'll be making. The food handling issues should be improved, as well as the shelf life and storage of these meats should be improved. Since the breaking news of our meatball came out earlier this year, we've had continuous coverage in the business media, in the Wall Street Journal in February, in November, and in the Financial Times yesterday, because it's also capturing the imagination of a lot of entrepreneurs and business people. Because what if we really can transform the meat industry to be sustainable? That is the one single thing that can really stop the curve of climate change, let us meet our Paris goals for 2030, but also get rid of the cognitive dissonance where people love to eat meat despite how it's produced, not because of how it's produced, because the taste is something everybody loves, but not how it's produced. And what if we really can transcend that? That's when the opportunity opens up. We're also very closely monitoring the mainstream press, because we were looking at the business press, because that's very important for us as a company, but also what people are talking about in the mainstream, in the media. And we've had people like Fortune call it the hottest tech in Silicon Valley, or maybe in 10 years from now, the best quality meat cuts will actually be coming from the clean meat production process that we're making. And this is very encouraging for a new industry that's starting. We're also keeping a very close eye on social media and what people are talking. And this was a survey done by someone named Sam Harris from Los Angeles. When he heard about our company and didn't know us, we didn't know him, he just posted a question and said, if cultured meat was identical to beef or pork and tastes the same, will you switch to eating it? It's not, please know the question is not, will you try it? It's, will you switch to eating it? There's incredible support for something like this in the general public, 83%. But we also know we have to do a lot of communication and education about how this is actually happening. Because I can guarantee none of us can actually go and watch how meat is produced. It's very unlikely in America, at least, to get into a slaughterhouse to see how meat is produced. But when we are at scale, Anybody can come and walk through the factory, through the glass walls, and see these are the meat cells that are growing. This is the meat that's coming out, whether it's pork or beef or chicken. And that's going to be transformative because you can actually see what you're eating and pick it. But there's also many other surveys that have been done by different types of groups. And no matter which survey it is, the lowest we found is 20%. And for an early adopter segment, 20% is huge for this trillion-dollar market. So we know that there's a number of people working on making this a reality. We also had thousands of people write to us after we closed our financing round earlier to want to be a part of our movement. So we specifically created a campaign that's actually running now, and the next, it'll be running for another 2 weeks. And this was done so that thousands of people across the world could sign up, join, contribute, whatever they would want to do. So we're building our user base so we can test our products, our messages, what was important for the customers in different parts of the world. So at the very least, I would urge you to go to this campaign right now and sign up. It's free to sign up for a newsletter. You don't have to contribute. And that's the reason we created this. And finally, I want to show you very quickly the trajectory of getting to the market. There is well-defined milestones where we have to identify the best quality cells that can continue to grow. We're trying to find the best and the most efficient and nutrient supply for these cells, and then trying to grow them in scale so that we can lower the production. Starting to work with meat chefs who really know how to handle meat and testing it out in restaurants initially before we go to public release so that we get feedback on the types of products people love to eat. And then starting to get into upper segment retail or so. So this is, in a sense, the roadmap to get to the market for any company. And we're fortunate to be pioneering this area, but I fully expect other companies to come in the space, and that's very needed because we need innovation. We also need companies to work together, cross-license their technologies, and really talk to the world about what we can do with our food production. I'll also tell you, as my last slide, the types of people that join us are super talented. They're brilliant hearts and brilliant minds. But there's a very strong feature we see in all of them. They have a very strong inner purpose of why they want to see this happen. So I thought I'd play to you just an example of two of our scientists and why they joined Memphis Meats.
I'm Danielle. I'm in this movement because I love eating meat, but I wish it was better for the environment.
I'm Eric, and I'm on Team Memphis because I want to make meat a part of a healthy and humane lifestyle.
So this is just a sampling, and we get hundreds of resumes of scientists or business analysts who want to work with us because there's a strong purpose that drives them. And when you match purpose and a deep desire with a very strong business proposition and something that the world has not innovated in for decades, even centuries, we feel like this is such an important portion of things to work on for all of us. And this is an open call to anyone that wants to work with us, partner with us, join us. Please feel free to call us. Our email is up there, founders@memphismeats.com, and you can also check us out. So I want to really thank you for listening to this innovation. I hope to see you guys again in the future. Slush really rocks. Thank you so much.